Hello, everyone. I hope everyone is doing good in this new crazy normal that we have here. Um, Things probably won't change too much for you guys since you're already online, but I am definitely navigating a whole new normal, and you probably are in your personal and home life as well. So I want you to know that there's going to be a lot of flexibility for the rest of the semester. You should feel free to contact me if you're having any trouble, getting work done or having any trouble with anything for this semester, because the university is really operating on a new paradigm, and I don't want anyone to feel like it's going to be the cause of them not being successful this semester. So that's my little spiel. To please be calm and do things that help yourself. Hopefully everybody's getting a chance to get outside and do some things that they wouldn't normally get a chance to do. I, for one, am going to start practicing the guitar again. I've had a guitar for 19 years that I've never learned how to play. I've moved it 4 times. So that's something I'm going to try to spend at least 10 minutes a day doing that I never felt like I had enough time for before. So I hope you're getting a chance to do some things that bring you joy as well. I'm recording today because I want to give you an example of the historical thinking read aloud that you are going to be doing in your groups this week. So I had already picked out titles or given you examples for titles on your curriculum planning spreadsheet. So you can pick one of those choices, and you're doing this assignment as a group. And so even if only one person has access to the book right now, if you meet over WebEx and are able to read the book over together, you should be able to do this assignment just fine. I also put up a full example onto Canvas to show you what my in-person students had completed, a good example from them. And I'm gonna read you a little example as well today. So the first thing you're gonna do is, it says here pick a book from a list in the example, but you're actually gonna pick a book from the curriculum planning spreadsheet, put the title down. I want you to look at, who the author is, any information you can find about the author, what is the book about, what's the historical topic, give a brief summary of the book, find some standards that you would be supporting for this book, and actually those standards are already given for you on the curriculum planning sheet. And then importantly, this is where the hard work comes in. You need to figure out two things that you can focus on with this book. So the point of a historical thinking interactive read aloud is to read a book to students in an interactive way where they're answering questions, but in a way that is supporting their skill development. So in ELA, you might do an interactive read aloud to help students with a particular literacy skill, such as summarizing or I don't know, lots of different ELA skills you can do. That's not my specialty. But in a historical thinking interactive read aloud, you can support their development of historical thinking skills, which is what you guys were reading about right before spring break. So historical thinking skills are things like helping students think through perspective, helping them think about cause and consequence, historical concepts, thinking through context, historical context. And there's a link here to help you think through what those concepts are. You only need to pick one. You have to say, while reading this book, I could help students develop skills about historical context, or helping them think through perspective, or helping them think through cause and consequence. Then you also need to pick one equity concept, okay? So and all your books were picked with purpose, that you can do both of these things with them. So, it's a free range of what you're kind of thinking through as equity. I have some examples on there. The example that is given to you, the students were using a text about Native American tribes and the consequences of different ways the river was treated on them, and so their equity concept was about Indigenous sovereignty. The equity concept I'm going to use here is gender, okay? So the example that I'm going to do today is a book called Knit Your Bit, and the historical thinking skill I want to focus on is you only have to do one, but I might do questions about perspective or context. So those are the historical thinking skills I'm going to work on. And then the equity concept for the Knit Your Bit is going to be about gender, okay? All right, then you need to develop a little plan for teaching, okay? So you're going to set your purposes for reading. What are you going to say to students before you read? You always, of course, want to make sure that they know what skills they're working on during this interactive read aloud. And then what you're doing in this is all you're doing is planning questions, okay? And so you're going to say page 4, we're going to ask this question. And each of your questions only needs to relate either to your historical thinking skill or your equity skill. It does not have to do both. Some of the questions on this example do both, but you do not have to do both. Each question only needs to relate to either your equity concept or your historical thinking concept. So I asked my in-person students to try to do 4 or 5 questions. So of those, hopefully maybe 2 will relate to your equity concept, maybe 3 would relate to your historical thinking concept. But as long as you're having one of each, and you're doing 4 or 5 questions total, that's just fine. But remember that it's really, really hard to do a question that does both your equity concept and your historical thinking concept. It only has to do one or the other, okay? Then you're going to write down the question, write down the page number that you're going to do it on, and then you're going to say this question relates to the equity concept of whatever your equity concept is because, and explain how it supports that equity concept, or explain how the question supports historical thinking. And then you want to plan up some follow-up probing questions. So if students just kind of look at you with blank stares with that question, how are you going to probe them to still get at that historical thinking or that equity concept with some follow-up questions, okay? And basically you're going to do that same process about 4 or 5 times, and you're going to plan an interactive read aloud that you would do with students, okay? So again, you only have to pick one historical thinking skill, one equity concept. Use your book from your planning spreadsheet. You're doing this in groups, and you're planning out those questions. So I want to give you an example. I don't know if I'm going to have time to read the full book because I'm limited to 10 minutes on this recording. I'm using Screencast-O-Matic. And so I want to make sure that I'm not going over that time. So this is a book called Knit Your Bit. It is a World War I story, okay? And there's some primary photographs at the beginning of this book. I love this book. All right. So when Pop left to be a soldier, I wanted to go with him. I'm brave, I told Pop. I know, Mikey, he said, patting my shoulder, and you'll need to be, because it takes just as much courage to stay behind. Okay. So I want to ask a question about context here. What do you think is going on during this time period? So that would be a question getting students to think through context. Back home, Mama pulled out her knitting needles. Our soldiers will be cold come winter. Teach me, Ellie begged. I want to help. What about you, Mikey? Mama asked, fishing out more needles. No way. Boys don't knit, I said. Besides, I want to do something big to help. Okay, so here I might ask a question about gender. So why does Mikey think that he shouldn't knit? So, and then I might say, so is that true? Is that true that boys shouldn't knit, or is that a stereotype? Ellie finished her first hat a few days later. It wasn't much to look at, but she wrapped it up to send to Pop right away. You could knit him something too, Mikey. Like I said, sis, knitting is for girls. No, it's not, Ellie cried, grabbing the newspaper. Everyone's helping. Look at these firemen, and even President Wilson keeps sheep on the White House lawn for wool. Ellie turned the page. If we each do a little, it makes something big, she said. I just rolled my eyes. All right, so here I might ask another question about context. So what do you think is going on in the country, in addition to the war, that so many people are knitting and keeping sheep even on the White House lawn? What does that tell you about what's going on in the context of this time and in the United States during this time? A few days later, Miss Robin tacked a poster on the bulletin board. Wouldn't it be great if students from our class entered the knitting bee, Miss Robin asked. All the boys, including me, jeered. Mikey, you're always talking about how brave you are, Sarah said. This is your chance to help, but I bet you're scared you can't learn. Me, scared? My friends and I can beat you any day. Mikey, sit down, Nick hissed. Dare you to enter, the girls cried all together. It's a deal, boys against girls. We'll call our team the Boys Knitting Brigade. I thought that sounded big and important enough. Fine, said Josie. We'll be the Pearl Girls. Pearl Girls? I didn't even know what pearl meant. I gulped. What had I gotten us into? All right, so here I want to ask a question about perspective. So perspective is how a person's viewpoint or the way they see the world. So how were the girls seeing the knitting bee? And how were the boys seeing the knitting bee? What was their perspective? All right, so I'm going to stop there. So this is what you're doing in this historical thinking interactive read aloud assignment. You are planning out what your read aloud would look like. And so all you're doing is planning out those questions and rationalizing or supporting how they support historical thinking skills or your equity concept. Okay, I hope that example was helpful for you all. This is the only thing besides your discussion board that you have to work on this week, and it's really good practice because next week, after this week, we're going to start working on your inquiry lesson plans. And in your inquiry lesson plans, you're going to have to do a lot more questioning than you would have in your direct instruction lesson plan. So I love this example of the historical thinking read aloud as a warm-up to your inquiry lesson plan next week. Okay, so get together with your group. Submit one assignment per group, and I look forward to reading them and hoping that you're really enjoying the books that I picked out for your curriculum groups to do. All right, thank you so much, everybody, and take care. Bye-bye.